Hello and happy Friday. My name is Kat Navarro-Lee, and I'm going to be doing some interviews that I like to call Faith and Flow, where faith and belief in God meets a career in the entertainment business. So my interview today is with Yoshi and Peter Sudarso, and they are Indonesian Chinese American brothers, and they're actors known for different things, such as both being the Blue Power Ranger, having washboard abs. I talk to them and they're just normal, nice guys. And we talk about their faith and how it encompasses everything, including their career. So thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you so much, Yoshi and Peter, for talking to me and being real and honest. You guys, and I know that both of you guys are, such positive guys, and you're both believers. And I just wanted to see like how that plays a role in your career and your everyday life, and especially now too with all this craziness going on. So how do you guys stay positive, and how does your faith play a role in what's going on right now?
You want to go first? I think for me, I don't know if it's fully about staying positive as it is staying hopeful. I think my faith, regardless of the what's going on right now or in the industry, I think it applies in the same way. Because in the industry, sometimes you go through seasons where like you're not going to be working a lot, or you're not going to be seeing a lot of fruit, in the things that you do. And sometimes it's going to seem kind of hopeless and kind of depressing. And right now
Yeah.
that we're going through with Corona and all that stuff, it's really depressing. It's on like an extreme scale, but also at the same time, I think my faith applies to it in the same way. It doesn't give me positive thoughts. It's not like, oh yeah, you're gonna book a huge job someday, or oh yeah, no one's gonna die in your family. I don't think that my faith really does that for me. I think it's more of my faith grounds me in a place where no matter what happens, God will be there for me. Like if I don't book a job and it turns out that I'm gonna have to be doing a different job, that'll be okay. At least God meant for me to be here, and I'm supposed to learn something while I'm here. During the whole coronavirus thing, I don't mean to be dark and I don't mean to be morbid, but my parents are pretty old, and a lot of my family members are old as well. I don't think that my faith really is like giving me the belief of like, oh yeah, no one that I know is not gonna die, because then that kind of a faith will make me shaky if something does happen, if they do die, if someone does get injured and someone does get hurt. And I don't think that's where it's grounded for me at all. I think it's more of like, if someone does get hurt, if someone does get injured, God's gonna find a way to help me get through it. God's gonna find a reason for me to see the light through it all. It's more of a hopeful stance than it is a positive stance. I guess hope can be viewed as positive, but am I making sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just for myself, instead of like I don't think it provides a positive outlook for me. It's just more of like a hopeful outlook, so that I can find the positive, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a little similar, but also at the same time, it's a little. I've definitely had more trouble with it, in the sense of during like some drought times. It's hard to be like, how can you be so faithful right now when you're not working? And right now with everything that's going on, people are asking that question. It's like, how are you so faithful? And I think for me, throughout the years that I have gone through these kinds of situations of drought or whatever it is, I have always had a moment where I'm like, okay, God, like, why are you putting me through this? Why does it have to be this way? And because of those moments, when I would get to those things, God always has an answer for me. Amen. In His right timing. Amen. So it's been proven time and time and time again that He's going to come through, that this storm that we're in right now is just a storm while He's taking a nap, and He's like, listen, relax, I got you. Yeah, like, the boat's gonna be fine, you're gonna be fine, we're gonna make it to our destination. It's gonna happen the way it's supposed to happen. Yeah. And just stressing while the storm is happening isn't helping anyone.
Right. And there's so
And
much
it's just
stress going on right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And to add on to what you were saying too, it's like for me personally, it's like fine doesn't necessarily mean what we think is fine. You know what I mean? It's like I personally sometimes think like, oh, everything's gonna be fine, like as in like all the best things are gonna happen,
Right.
you know, and that's not exactly how I think that God's plan works. Everything is gonna be fine in the end, but differently. You know, it's like maybe you won't get the job, but maybe you'll have the courage to be stronger for your next job. You know?
Right, right. It's not like just things that we want,
Right.
stuff like
Exactly.
that.
It's like when you ask
Yeah.
for patience and he gives you hard things to deal with.
Exactly.
You
I
work on your
know.
patience.
I almost never pray for patience because I'm scared.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I always pray for patience, but I ask for gentleness and I ask him for him to just endow it to me.
Right. When next time
Yeah.
if you guys ever do pray for that, then he'll give you guys kids. So then you'll be like, ah.
That's true.
Well, you already have a kid. But well, speaking of like what you guys have been talking about just how like God has gotten you through different things, can you talk about a time where, in whether it's like your life or career, where you knew that with the circumstances it was only God that you got to the outcome that you had, or that got you to that place?
I was gonna. Well, I guess we were both gonna say the same thing. But
Every single time.
every single time, like there's not been a time where we were like, oh yeah, that was me. Well, I don't know. For me personally, I've never had a time where I was like, that was me. I was like, that had to been God.
Yeah.
You know?
Because most of the times, it maybe it's because of the way how industry works.
Yeah.
Is you never
It's a
really
little
know
dramatic sometimes.
where.
Yeah.
That, and for me, I never really know where my job came from. Sometimes it's like out of the blue, and I'm like, wait, how did you find me? And most of the time, it's never a direct answer. And in my head, I just there's no other way to explain it other than God was being generous. Like one of the biggest that literally came out of nowhere. You know? Oh, she frozen. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think the
And
internet
it came out of nowhere.
connection.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Chris was like, he was like, bro, you got this job. I was like, did I audition for this, bro? He was like, I don't think so. And when we were reading it together, he was like, I think you're the lead. I was like, I know, man, and it's in Indonesia. And like both of us were just like, you know, we had no idea what was going on. And it was around the time where I'm like, I needed something to happen for me. I just didn't know I needed it that time. And God literally was like, all right, here you go. You've been patient, you've been waiting, you've been faithful.
Amen.
Here it is.
I love those stories.
That's why, like, also at the same time,
Yeah.
like I was gonna say is it's a good mentality to have in the industry to know that like things come at not your own time,
And it's not in your hands.
it's not in your hands.
Or anyone else's.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you can't improve yourself,
Right, and be
And
lazy.
and it doesn't mean you should be lazy and not work on your craft. That's not what I'm saying at all. You should spend every day working on your craft.
It just gives you peace.
It just gives you peace because you can try your best and you can really really try your best, but if I say God, but whatever other people say, like if the big man upstairs doesn't open the doors, you're not getting in, you know? And,
Right.
Like I guess in terms of personal experience, it was watching Yoshi's like work as well as and mine as well to see that like all of it kind of happened spontaneously. It kind of happened in the perfect timing. Like both of us wanted Power Rangers. Not, neither one of us even expected to be actors. We came in from background acting, thinking we were gonna do this for a little bit, then become mathematician and architect, you know. And then it led to this guy like booking Power Rangers. The year of his wedding. That's the nuts thing. It's like all the timing.
What a good year. Yeah.
It was just it just works out too nicely.
I think when you put your faith in God, great things happen to you. Like I think one of the first moments that it was for me was Power Rangers because me and Sarah, I don't know if I'd ever told you this before, but me and Sarah, we were kind of getting to a point in our relationship where marriage was the next step. And it was something I'd thought about for about a year or so. And right when I was about to ask her to marry me, I freaked out. I freaked out. I didn't have faith in God. I was like, I have no money. I have nothing. I don't know how to do this and this and this. I freaked out.
Wait,
And
can I say it from my perspective? Because
Wait.
it sounds so different for hearing it from your end than it does from my end. Because like you say that you didn't have faith in God, so you freaked out and all that stuff. That's not what I saw. What I saw was someone literally take it back to the COVID situation. It was someone who went through the storm. It was like I guess technically your rough patch during that time with the whole no money is the way a lot of people may be feeling through COVID now. They're freaking out. God, what's going on?
Yeah,
I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Maybe this isn't God's plan. This isn't all bad, whatever. During that time, you say that like you didn't believe in God, but you talked to me about it. You prayed, you trusted, then you said, I'm gonna do it anyways. Then he proposed to his now wife, his beautiful wife whose house we're living in now.
Yeah.
But during that time, God opened the door for him, and then he won Wipeout after breaking his leg, mind you. And then we got like a lump sum of money from that, and then he booked Power Rangers. So like I guess it's funny that on your end you lacked faith.
Well,
but
I was getting to that, but I lacked the faith, and then it wasn't. I had a moment of like a whole week of talking to Peter, talking to Sarah about some stuff, and then realizing that I have to put my faith in God about this, and then that's when I did. My leap of faith was asking Sarah to marry me. Within a week, all of these great things happened, and I was like, what was I worrying about?
I've heard a lot of stories like that where it's that point when you finally kind of surrender and you're like, okay, or like that step of obedience. And then after that, you see almost like, I think that verse in the Bible where you put God first and then he does allow your desires to come to pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like to circle all the way back to what you were saying, I think we have to credit everything that has happened in our career and our life to God's grace and blessing. Because none of it would have been from our own choice.
Yeah.
None of it was a possibility in our own heads.
And it's definitely easy to get wrapped up in it, especially in this world, this industry,
right?
Because we're constantly put on either a pedestal or the hot seat. We're put on this pedestal of like, oh my gosh, he's like this, he does this, look how good he's doing, this and this and that, and then they put us on this pedestal, and you're like, yeah, I did that. I can, you know what I mean? And
right.
you forget that, and that's I think where God can easily be like, hey, you know what I mean? Let me humble you a second.
Yeah.
Or in the same sense, on the opposite end of the spectrum is you're constantly put in this hot seat, and you're like, you're not good enough. You're not this. You're not exactly what we're looking for. You're not this and this. Constant. Where we've gone through so many auditions, get close and wipe out, and all this stuff, and then.
So when you do
let
get
that
it,
bogged in
so
your head,
you feel like when you get it, you're like, oh, this is me.
But I mean, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
on the other side, you're constantly being beaten down.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where God comes in. And it's like, it isn't your time yet.
Yeah.
And being able to be at peace in that sense of not letting that take over and that darkness sink in, because it's easy to let that sink in.
Right. And I think that might be why a lot of other people think that the industry is such a dark place, which is why I wanted to talk to you guys, because there are people in the industry that can be a light and it can be a platform to use for positive. And there are a lot of positive stories.
I agree. But thank you.
I think I remember when I talked to you before, Peter, didn't you say like you actually heard God telling you like you were going to get Power Rangers?
That's the thing that's the most real thing that's ever happened to me with God. And I was actually just talking to somebody about this the other day about how like God's blessings and I guess miracles can be so overlooked so easily and so quickly when you don't think about it, because the world doesn't believe. And then if the world doesn't believe, you start to think like maybe I was being nuts, maybe I was just like imagining things and stuff like that. But also at the same time, it's like you can't put a definition on God's words too, because it's like you never know when it's going to come to fruition, because God's timing is different than our time. Like when I heard about God telling me that I was going to be the Blue
like
Movie
a voice, like you heard his voice.
I literally heard of his voice. No, I was not on any drugs, Mike. I was going to sleep, so maybe I was getting a little sleepy. But then I freaked out. I ran outside. I told all my friends. I even made them sign a little piece of paper. And this was before the Power Rangers casting. Well, it was during the Ninja Steel casting, but before all that stuff happened. But during that time, I started to see signs and stuff. But like, what I was telling one of my friends was that I started to see signs before Ninja Steel. I kind of heard a word that I was going to be a Power Ranger when I first did it for Megaforce, but then I didn't end up getting Megaforce. So then it's like because one of my friends was talking about how like how do you know what sign is from God, and how do you know if it's like just you imagining things and you wanting things to be from God, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I was like, if it proves to be God, then it is from God. But also
Yeah.
at the same time, you gotta not forget when it proves to be God. You gotta not forget. You gotta remember it, and you gotta ingrain it into your heart. Because if not, the world turns it into a coincidence. Oh, it was a fun little story. No, it was a miracle from God. But you forget, you know?
And there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that a lot don't, what is it, they don't listen to it.
Yes.
And he's very good at like listening to that voice. For me, to be honest, I it's hard for me to hear that sometimes, and I don't hear it all that often. Maybe it's because I'm uh, thinking it's just my head or whatever it is, but he's a little bit better about that. And ever since we were kids, like I remember growing up hearing all the older people, the adults at church being like, some God's gonna do some great work in you, like
It's not
constantly.
it's just not about that. It's like the thing is like people aren't raised to understand that we hear the voice of God.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds crazy when I tell you, hey, I've heard the voice of God. You're like, dude, this dude's nuts. But that's not the way that it is. It's like we all hear the voice of God. We just don't know how to
Right.
discern it. You know,
It's
it's
true
like
in different ways, right? Could be through a friend, it could be through dreams, like in so many different ways.
exactly. And the thing is like a lot of the times we grow up thinking that like, oh, I'm not the type of person to hear from God. And so you start thinking that like the things that you do hear from God are not from God, and you start to discount them and like, well, that's why they say like the enemy is a liar. You know,
Yeah.
it's like when you do hear from God, the enemy in your head is like, that's not from God. You don't hear from God. Because
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you, this guy, like I think for most of the people in the industry, the person that I think admire the most in terms of like how God leads them is you. And I've talked to you about this.
Oh, I love that.
He doesn't think he hears God, and I guess that's what's beautiful about it. Is like we have a very different relationship when it comes to our relationship with God. I feel like I constantly hear, and I'm like, was that from God? Let me figure out. Let me challenge. Let me study. Let me look. Let me go deeper. Let me find out if this is from God. And in a sense, sometimes it leads to a way that becomes a miraculous story, or it seems like a cool, fantastical, magical thing. But that's only because I dive into it. Whereas Yoshi, in this industry, it's not like that at all. He's like, God points, he goes. He doesn't think, he just goes because he's like, maybe it's my voice. It's my voice telling me to do this, so let me do this. But that's the thing is like we hear God differently in our lives, and I think it's really important to not, I guess, um,
Ignore it,
discount. Yeah,
discount
it's
that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's important to not discount how we hear God.
Yeah.
We just hear it very differently, and we're just raised in a world, in a culture where hearing God sounds insane because everything has to be rooted in like the physical, the material, but
Scientific.
the scientific. But when you do that, you strip the world of why, the narrative, the like, and I think that's what belief is. Belief, God creates narrative. God creates reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we here on earth? Why am I an actor? Because there's a reason behind all this stuff.
Yeah.
And God creates reason, you know? So, yeah, sorry for that long blur.
No, that's so awesome. Thank you guys. Well, I think that this will definitely be encouraging for other people, and just to kind of hear how you guys have your walk and have each other for support too. Talk about community. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's God's blessing for both of us.